Mayor Karen, Paul Little has just sent a message that he hasn't been sent a link.
Yeah, I'm just sorting it now.
Oh, you know about it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it came up on my computer. Yeah, Chris is sorting it out, and David will assist. Just wait on Councillor Little. He's just linking in now. Here it comes. Okay. Confusing. Okay. I think we'll get started, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this ordinary council meeting on the 22nd of March 2022. My name is Karen Redmond. I'm the Mayor of the town of Gawler. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge this land that we meet on tonight is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. We have a few people that are wanting to speak, and we'll work through that as part of our agenda. The Town of Gawler welcomes and encourages public attendance at all council and committee members and council workshops. They're welcome to attend and listen, and some people are given the opportunity to speak through deputations, and we've got a fairly flexible arrangement in that regard because we're doing it online. Just so everyone's aware, your views are very welcomed. However, this is a formal meeting, and you're not able to take direct part in the debate when the item comes up for debate. I'm sure people are aware of that. Any inappropriate or profane language, obscene, ridicule, rudeness, anger, a lack of respect for others, or personal attacks are not acceptable behaviour in this meeting. I will caution you if that occurs. Any irrelevant, inappropriate or offensive remarks while addressing council, again, I might choose to caution you. I'm sure that won't be a problem this evening. So that just covers off on some of our respectful behaviours that we like to uphold here. So I'll move on to roll call. I'd like to firstly welcome all staff here this evening. CEO Henrietta, Senior Executive Team, Minute Taker Chris, who's assisting me here in the office, elected members, roll call. I think we have everyone here. I don't think anyone is not here from the elected members, as far as I can tell. So therefore, there's no apologies. Are there any motions to grant leave of absence, councillors? Councillor Goldstone.
Yes, I'd just like to apply for a leave of absence for the period of 31st of March through the 20th of April.
Is that for yourself, Kelvin?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so you've moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Somebody wish to? David Hughes, Deputy Mayor, you happy to second? All those in favour, please vote now. Councillor Jim, I'll get rid of your hand and then you can vote. Sorry, Jim, you'd just like to vote? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. There are no leave of absence and there's no non-attendance. So moving on to deputations, we have 4 people here this evening that wish to speak, or 3. There was 4, but there's now 3. So in order, I'll call your name out and I'll call everybody's name out and then I'll start with the first person. So the first person to speak is Mr. Reuben Bates Brownsword. The second person is Mr. Cosy Costa and the third person is Mr. Julian Midwinter. So Reuben, if you'd like to unmute yourself and you have the floor. Each person will have 5 minutes. We'll get a 30-second warning and we'll go from there. Okay. Reuben, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, to Mayor and councillors, thank you for the time to talk to you yet again. Gawler Squash Club is only one of 200 clubs in Gawler. And we are not the smallest, but we are all part of Gawler, including the football club. Gawler's House Football Club got the lease 10 years ago on a peppercorn lease. With this, they were expected to make arrangements for their own growth. This hasn't happened. Now they expect to take over the squash court building. Obviously, myself and the squash object to this strongly, and we are prepared to put this submission in a hope that we can come to some solution. Even if the courts are allowed to happen to go to football, it won't save their main problem, lack of overall space. Even if and when they get new club rooms, it will still not solve their problem. So a simple question: why kill another club in this quest to go nowhere? Squash was in this building long before they came along. We all know they have been looking to move, and good luck with that. That's what they will need to do in the future. But again, don't kill off squash on your way to get this new site. We at Gawler Squash can see and know football has a big problem, and we offer a hand up in that, given the lease, we will not change the status of the football use of Court 3 or the use of umpires and timekeepers in the upstairs section. This would be for the coming season. In the meantime, football and council need to come together and build a nuts and bolts shed the size of 2 courts at the back of their club rooms. Then wait for government money to build change rooms and showers. All this to be moved to new site when and please don't say it can't be done, this will only solve the present problem. For squash to hold a separate lease, it is not a vote against football. It is a vote for the both to try and survive. Squash SA is also willing to help with school kids' development with our #1 world squash player, Vicky Cardwell, to coach at Gawler. This is a very big thing. She is coaching 20 to 30 juniors in Tanunda and is prepared to do the same in Gawler. I've spoken to all councillors at length and they have asked many useful questions, and I hope I have answered to their satisfaction. The council may well ask, how will Gawler Squash fund the changeover? Well, SA Squash has already offered to fund a 50-50 basis up to $10,000, and our accountant will do a forward planning budget. Before football came along, squash ran a successful club with money to pay the bills. This can only happen again if we have tenure of the building. So you people in this room have the last say.
30 seconds, Ruben, thank you.
Please make your vote to mean both clubs survive. And if there's any questions, I'd be only too happy to answer. Thank you.
Might take questions at the end when everyone's finished speaking.
Okay.
So hang around, Ruben, don't go away.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruben. Now, next is Mr. Cosy Costa. Cosy. You just unmute yourself, Cosy.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity to talk on this subject. And thank you, Ruben. Well presented. And again, I assure you that the decisions made by the football club have been very difficult, and we are totally sympathetic to the cause and to the people of the squash community. However, the decision we made was, again, as you rightly pointed out, about space. 10 years ago, you mentioned, we didn't have junior football. We didn't have women's football. Squash was much more popular. But over the last 10 years, there have been substantial changes, and particularly with rules and regulations and requirements, not from us, but above our heads, that we have to comply with. And these are the basis as to why the reasons we've had to make some changes and look to be utilising the facility that we do have. We agree with the fact that the space is limited, and it hasn't changed in the last 8 months since we first debated this matter. The only thing that has changed is we have more people joining our clubs wanting to play football, and we are under more pressure to try and provide them the adequate facilities. In regards to women in particular, as part of us hosting a women's football team, we are required to offer them facilities where they can change and shower undercover. At the moment, they're getting changed in the car. We now have one shower in the public toilets in the club rooms, but that's not going to suffice for 2 teams of football playing at one time. So we have a big issue that we need to address. There's plenty of plans on the board that we have to adhere to. Unfortunately, they're all being held up because of our lease arrangement and obviously this issue. So I don't really want to go away with the same thing over and over again. We all know the scenario. We have more teams every year playing football. 10 years ago, we had darts, we had 8-ball, we had tennis, all at South Gawler, but they've all gone by the wayside because of lack of support. And I guess squash falls into that category, having known that there were courts at Brahma Lodge, Elizabeth, Craigmore, Mawson Lakes that have all gone by the wayside over the last decade. So, I mean, we appreciate the fact that squash is a popular sport, but its popularity has waned ours has increased. There's nothing else I can say that I haven't already said, and I don't want to keep wasting everybody's time saying the same thing, other than the reality is we need every square inch of that facility that we can to provide the adequate facilities that are required under our governance to host football. We don't want to be in a situation where the league takes home games away from us because we can't provide. That would then mean death to this football club, death to 350 plus members, death to 13 football teams, 16 netball teams. We can't afford that. The community can't afford that, and the council can't afford that. If this becomes a bigger issue than it is now, I fear that it will go higher. It will go through the SANFL now, and if it may even go to the governing body, which is the AFL. We don't want that to happen. We'd rather get this resolved, move on. We have plans to do modifications and improvements. On the weekend, I was there all day Sunday. We've just fixed up all the lights. We're fixing up plumbing. It's costing us a few $1,000s every time we go there to do things. We cleaned the place. There was a rat's nest, mice nest all under the office cupboards that we had to clean. We had vandals last week smash the windows, so we had to clean all the windows, board the windows up. We now have to get security guards open, not the guards, some security windows to be put in place now to protect them. So there's another fee for that, plus the excess we have to pay for the insurance to get the repairs done. So it's a big expense, and whilst I understand the fact that you've negotiated some sort of funding, it's a big expense to run that facility. And I need to make sure that we understand that we've just committed to $30,000 worth of solar panels on top of that roof with all the controllers inside the squash court facility. I'm not sure how we can understand the sharing of that when we've paid that sort of money. We can't move it, and it has to stay there. And we have the cool room connected to that facility. Everything is just tied together. I can't see any logical way that can be separated without someone having to pay a lot of money, and that will either fall on squash or on the council, because we won't be needing to do those modifications to make this separate. So I think on that point, I'll stop. Happy to answer any questions, but as I said previously, we have over and over again, the one issue that we have had to make this decision on is space. We have to provide the facilities to be able to accommodate the people who want to play cricket, football and netball at South Gawler.
Thank you, Kelsey. Now, Julian Midwinter, you have the floor, Julian. I'll give you a 30-second warning at the 4:30 mark.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Thank you, elected councillors, for allowing me to speak. To say that the residents of Edith Street are disappointed in the MFY report, and particularly the summary by the Council Traffic Department, would be an understatement. There are multiple proven effective options for traffic calming available that are not being flagged as possibilities for Edith and Blanche Streets, with only closure at the hard end, which is rejected in the summary, or the positioning of 7 road cushions at the soft end, which is forwarded in the summary as the preferred option. The report then deals at length with the realigning of the short street intersections to facilitate traffic flow, which would seem to be at odds with the supposed intention of the study. We have multiple questions that we would like answered. 1. Why does the summary dismiss the speed of traffic on Edith Street as within acceptable limits when the report by MFY cites the 85th percentile is 51 kilometres per hour, and the Ost Road guidelines clearly states that a local road should not exceed 40 kilometres per hour on a local road? 2. Why is there no acknowledgement in the summary that the report confirms that by its design and configuration, Edith Street is a local road and is being treated incorrectly, counted to its intended use, and should not be carrying the current volume of traffic? 3. Why is there no mention in the summary the report found conclusively through the 2x3 hour studies of traffic video that between 75 and 90% of the users of Edith Street were non-locals, i.e. rat runners avoiding the Lindock Road intersection? 4. Austroads guidelines clearly set local roads as designed to carry less than 1,500 vehicles per day. Where does this summary find the basis for the stated position of the acceptability of the 2,300 vehicles per day using Edith Street as being within the guidelines? Which guidelines? Where is the official documentation ratifying 2,300 vehicles per day for a local road as being acceptable? That's one car every 26 seconds a day, every day. 5. The summary makes the issue of road widths unclear when proffering the case that Edith Street is acting as a potential minor collector road by quoting the total width at 9.2 metres, while the local road average is only 7 metres, whereas collector road width requirement is quoted as being 6 to 6.5 metres, which is the minimum for a laneway carriage width, which is the space between oppositely parked cars, as opposed to the minimum width requirements for the total width of a collector road, which is 11 metres. Edith Street only has a through lane carriageway width of 3.5 metres, which is clearly inadequate for 2 cars to pass, making Edith Street totally unsuitable for such a classification. 6. The report by MFY clearly suggests that road closure is the most effective option to solve the Edith Street traffic issue, whereas the summary states that this is not a preferred option. Disappointingly, the report only suggests 2 possible positions for the street closure, both of which have the kick-on effect of being the most inconvenient for the Short Street, Blanche Street, Edith Street residents and Gawler traffic in general by diverting all the traffic out onto the Lindrock Road and down to the dreaded Main Street intersection. Why would the position of the closures at Lindrock Road for both Edith Street and Blanche Street not be considered? This would then not be pushing us out onto Lindrock Road, creating more congestion there, and we would easily exit the area via Murray Street, avoiding the main road intersection. 7. Austroad guides to traffic calming on local roads evaluates road cushions, our preferred option, as of only limited efficacy as they have multiple shortcomings. Namely, they are easily avoided by putting the wheels of the car in the centre of the road. They are also too narrow to deter larger 4x4s and trucks, and they produce minimal speed reduction. A massive percentage of Gawler residents drive large 4x4s, and they rat run down Edith Street. Sorry, my phone's gone to sleep. Austroads suggest that these are the only speed humps that actually work to reduce speed, if that is the main objective of the exercise. The number of vehicles using Edith Street to avoid the main road has become intolerable at 2,300 per day. It has become entrenched in the driver's mindset that Edith Street is a legitimate alternative, and it is used.
30 seconds.
It is used as a cut through even at hours when there are no cars on the main road intersection, like 4 a.m. We get constantly abused by them for slowing them down when we are turning into our properties, or call out to the speeding vehicles to slow down. Many of us have had drivers stop and get out of their utes and abuse us for hindering them as they travel down our street. Both my wife and I and other residents have been physically threatened by these yobbos. The Gawler Council has for years been unfairly using Edith Street as the solution.
You've had nearly over 6 minutes. You might want to wrap it up.
Okay. The main road congestion problem, and we have had enough. We demand that a real solution to the issue of rat running that we are facing is properly addressed. The main road congestion is not our fault, and it is no excuse not to address our issue and to force us to continue to suffer because it isn't the easy option. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Now, Questions, Councillor Hughes and Councillor Ballalonga, in that order. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. A question for Ruben. How much money has the squash courts, or the Gawler Squash Club, actually got in the bank currently? And it sounds like you've also been offered $10,000 assistance, but how much money does the squash club actually have in the bank now?
Just need to unmute yourself, Ruben.
Thank you. Yes, we've got just under $10,000 in the bank
Thank you.
at this moment. Yeah.
Councillor Ballalonga. You can unmute, Jim.
Just a question to Sam regarding about the Edith Street. Can you hear me, Sam?
We can hear you. Yep.
Can we slow the street down, Sam? Because we're hearing a lot that people aren't slowing down. And what can you do to slow it down?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor.
So I don't want you to repeat the report, Sam, just a brief answer if you can, and when we can go into more detail when we discuss the report.
Yes, certainly. So Councillor Ballalonga, I suppose what we've put before you is an option to go out to consultation for further discussion with that community. We obviously heard from one community member tonight in that local area, but the intent of the speed cushion preferred treatment that we've recommended, or the consultants recommended for us to consider, does in fact, will in fact reduce speeds. So I suppose that's your answering your question, I suppose in short.
All right.
Thank you.
Can I have another question too, please?
Yes.
Can I ask the CEO a question?
What's your question, Councillor Ballalonga?
What's his thoughts on regarding the squash courts?
CEO, do you wish to make comment on that?
Well, it may be appropriate for me to respond to that once we get to that item and the members have a chance to have a debate, and then I might then respond to any questions and or answer that at that point through the chair.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Koch and then Councillor Shanks.
Thanks, Mayor. Is it a question to Mr. Costa? You've mentioned a few times about the SANFL and the AFL and their requirements. What do you think their view would be around the football club taking over those facilities at the expense of the squash club? Because I'm sure they're a community based. From everything that I can see from the AFL and the SANFL, they're community orientated and they support other codes. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, obviously, Councillor, it's only a perspective. I can't speak on behalf of the SANFL or the AFL. However, I will draw the assumption that their main focus is a sport that they support and manage. And I know that we are in a unique position. This isn't something that happens at many other places, and I'm sure that it's not something that they would be having any different feeling towards this than we are, which is we are all sympathetic. But at the end of the day, we are part of that sport. They are the administration of that sport, and I would expect that, irrespective of their personal opinion, they would probably follow the path that is best to support their sport.
Thank you.
Councillor Shanks.
Just a question to Julian, if I could. Are you able to just reiterate, I guess, your best case scenario solution to the best of your knowledge, with obviously, I look at you as a bit of a representative of your neighbours, et cetera, et cetera. So what are you hearing out there?
Well, the primary concern is the number of cars that are driving down the street. Okay, the speed is an issue, but if you get rid of the cars, there is no speed problem there to be addressed. So, and like I said, there are cars that start driving, using Edith Street as a cut through at about 4:30 in the morning. We get, it was counted by one of the residents here who did her own survey. We had 126 cars come from Lyndoch Road down Edith Street to Murray Street between 4:30 and 7 a.m. Now, that was 100% of the users of Edith Street were rat runners, using it to avoid the main road intersection when there was nobody at the intersection. We would actually like to see the roads blocked, no more cars. That would solve the problem. A road closure at Lyndoch Road on Edith Street and at Blanche Street causes no noise. You don't get all the people bumping over the speed humps, even the road cushions, a friend of mine lives around the corner from a speed hump, and we were driving down one on the weekend, and in his Prado, he could drive over them at full speed. They don't really work. So yeah, road closure is really what we are after.
You had another question, Councillor Sheets.
Yeah, just one more follow-up. Thanks, Mayor. Okay, so if this goes out for community consultation and the greater community as a whole is not for that option, what is the backup, I guess, the contingency? I mean, you don't have to necessarily answer that now, but it'd be great to start thinking about those options too. Not saying that that's what's going to happen, but yeah, just a comment on that.
Well, as I said in my opening paragraph, there are a lot of options that are available to be used in traffic calming, and cushions are only one of those, or speed humps are only one of those. Chicanes, road narrowing, it stops people being able to travel in two directions. We constantly have cars that are banking up 2 and 3 behind each other, getting past a parked car on the road. So if there are measures put in place such as those up at the Lyndoch Road intersection, and down at Murray Street, that's going to put a lot of people off, as opposed to just putting in the slowing devices. But if you really restrict the use of the street, then yeah, that I think will that'll deter a lot of these guys.
Thank you, Councillor Little.
Yeah, I've just got a question of Mr. Costa, in relation to how much funding would you require of the squash courts to assist you in running the electricity, water and sewerage for your club a year? Did you hear me, Cosy?
Yep. No, I was just waiting to be unmuted. Thank you, Councillor Little. Our average electricity bill before we invested in the solar panel system was somewhere around $16,000 to $18,000 per year. Our water is substantial as well, obviously, with the irrigation system. To come up with an exact figure, I'm not sure that I'm in a position right now to do that. Again, I want to reiterate that this was not really about the money, it's just about the space. As we were aware, there were some issues with payments, and we as a football club probably were a bit negligent in not pursuing them and getting them paid, but by the same token, we were giving them a bit of leeway, again, it wasn't about the money. This issue that we have right now is about space. It's I can't keep saying the same thing over and over again. If its decision is made that we have to share this facility, I'm sure that we're going to need substantially more than a few $1,000s to survive, because we are going to have to find some way of funding significant renovations and additions to that club rooms to be able to accommodate showers, toilets, change rooms for all of our players. I mean, we have 18 square metres of change rooms, 2 lots of 18 square metre rooms to accommodate 30 players in each one. 18 square metres, it just doesn't, it can't work. So if we are talking about money and we have to share this facility, it's going to be quite expensive for us to be able to come up with a plan to be able to accommodate the teams that we have to support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kosh, you've got another question, then we might wrap up the questions and move on.
Okay, yeah, another question to Mr. Costa. I'm a bit confused here. The squash courts are going to turn into a gymnasium, is that right? And so I'm a bit confused about the showers, because it sounds like that the squash courts space is going to be a gymnasium, not a shower facility. Is that right?
No, that's incorrect. We have converted one court to a gymnasium. We are looking at the moment with our builder. It's working out how we can improve the amenities there, the toilets and the showers to accommodate for showers and change area for our umpires, and whether we can then facilitate to expand the current male toilets at the squash centre to be able to use them as a shower facility for us to use as a change room, and then perhaps we can consider opening up the wall between the 2 current change rooms to give our visiting team more space to work. That's what we want to try and do to achieve some sort of release of pressure of squeezing people into small spaces. So we are using one of the courts as a gymnasium. The other one, we are thinking of using the rest of the facility to do the other things that we need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, speakers. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy evenings. Busy evening. Just like to thank you for sharing your thoughts and addressing council. I'm sure it helps all elected members in their deliberations. So thank you very, very much. Okay, now we're going to keep moving. That concludes our deputations. Are there any declarations of interest, councillors? Councillor Fosh, you've got your hand up. Can't hear you, Paul. You need to unmute yourself. I can't hear you, Paul. You need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
It's 12.1.3, the activation budget. It's very similar to the declaration I made at the IES. Is to do with my advocacy over an artisans market, but I'll talk about that when it comes up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations, councillors? Can't see anybody's hand up, so we'll keep moving. There's no agenda items, there's no petitions. Confirmation of minutes. We have 3. I'll do them one at a time. Firstly, the ordinary council meeting, 22nd of February. You happy to move that way, Deputy Mayor? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Samble, thank you. Any discussion? If not, all those in favour, please vote now. Those against, also vote. Who hasn't voted? Count. It's carried unanimously, thank you. A special council meeting on the 15th of March. 2022, looking for removal of those minutes. Councillor Goldstone, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Anybody wishing to second? Councillor Little, thank you. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'll just get rid of your hands. If there's no discussion, please vote now. Carried unanimously, thank you. Special council meeting on the 15th of March. 2022. You happy to move that way, Councillor Hughes? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ballalonga, thank you. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please vote. All those against, please vote. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. That concludes the confirmation of minutes. Business arising. Nobody's putting their hand up. Thank you. Now, Deputy Mayor Hughes, you have a motion on notice. I think it's actually better that we do that motion, deal with that motion first, and then deal with 10.1. I think it's probably a better order to do that. It is a matter for council, of course. So I'm looking for a mover that we move item 16 forward and deal with it now. You happy to move that way, Councillor Hughes?
Yes.
And Councillor Kosh, you've got your hand up. Are you happy to second? Yes. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. And if you're against. So it's carried. Thank you. So Deputy Mayor Hughes, you can present your motion on notice. Thank you very much. Where have you gone, David? I can't find you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I think a lot has been said. In the past, we were hearing from the football club that this was about the fact that the squash club wasn't paying its bills, but we've since, as councillors, received correspondence from an accountant saying the squash club have actually been paying, and there was checks that wasn't presented, and that's a registered accountant has sent that through to us, which is good. But we're hearing it's all about space. I think it's an argument that probably all our football clubs and most of our clubs could probably mount to try and push another club out. And I'm concerned that Gawler is made up of a lot of very small clubs. There's clubs with 3, 5, 6 members that use a number of shared spaces, and probably our 21,000 ratepayers in our town. Most of them are a member of at least one or more clubs, and yeah, they certainly would not like to hear of another club being pushed out by another club out of their premises, especially purpose-built squash courts. We've heard figures previously of the squash courts being worth over $700,000. For those squash courts to be turned into a couple of $100,000 worth of maybe toilets and change rooms, I think it's quite a big downgrading. So I'd actually ask councillors to please support my first motion to try and keep the squash court in Gawler. It's a very old squash court. Talking to Ruben, the members range between 30 and 50. If they can actually run the place themselves for maybe the first time in quite a long time, that membership should hopefully increase. They've got, by the sounds of it, $20,000 in the bank, which should help the club for a number of years. If we're looking at a sublease of even 5 years, this is something that can be looked at again in 5 years' time. But to kick the squash club out of their own building is not great. It's not good for our community. And we do have a large number of community groups in Gawler. A number of them are very small. And yeah, that will certainly get around those groups if this happens. So yeah, I'd ask that you support my motion to try and keep the squash club in the same position. I actually think that they will be financially a sustainable club. They just need to be given the chance to get going again. And we've got so many fitness groups, PTs, trainers, the NDIS money. Those people under the NDIS scheme could be using the squash courts for their treatments and plans. There's a lot of opportunities to use the squash courts for personal training and other sort of uses in the town. So I think it's a really good chance to let the squash club actually be on their own for the first time in a long time. So yeah, I'd ask all the councillors to support this motion.
Got a seconder for the motion. Councillor Valalonga, are you happy to second? You had your hand up first, Councillor. You seconding the motion, Councillor Valalonga? Just nod or no. Okay. Councillor Kosh, are you wishing to second the motion? and then I'll
Yes.
take questions.
Yes, I
after.
am.
You wish to speak?
Yep, I do. What I find sad about this is it's actually, I mean, it's all to do with space, and that's what it's really got down to. It's not the money; it's actually the space, and we should be providing space for both clubs. Really, we shouldn't have one club try to push out another club. Cannibalise another club just for them. We should be providing space for both of those clubs. We should be supporting both of those clubs. The squash club, it sounds like they're quite financial. They're getting support from SA Squash. They've got a commitment also to do some training and coaching, which is very important, with a national coach, which is pretty exciting. It's always nice to develop your skills in your community. And it's always a shame when you lose a facility, because once it's gone, it's completely gone. So the other issue I have, it's not a really good look for our town. And I'd question what the SANFL and the AFL would actually say about one of their code pushing out another code, and not really working together to find a solution where they can share the facilities. I think that would bode very unkindly for our town if that was to happen. So I'm quite happy to support this. I think there's room for negotiation, good faith negotiation. When two organisations come together in good faith to actually achieve an outcome, you can get outcomes. So I'll be supporting this motion and hope others do, because I don't like the idea of losing one community group being pushed out by another community group. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ballalonga, you had a question? We wish to speak.
Just a quick question to Councillor Hughes. How much money did you say that the club has in the bank?
I think Ruben said there was, did I hear it right, Ruben, 20,000? Did I get that right?
No, it was under 10,000.
What was it, Ruben? I can't hear you, Ruben. You're muted.
The squash club has 10,000,
Oh,
and I think what Councillor Hughes put was that we've been promised 10,000 from Squash SA to assist in any changeover of what we may need to do, electricity, etc.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification. I think that answers your question, Councillor Ballalonga.
Good.
Thank you.
It's always misleading, Mayor.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Fraser, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. If the South Gawler Football Club doesn't get these extra courts, they're in danger of being non-compliant by the SANFL standards. And if we lose the club, there's many more ratepayers and their families affected than if the squash courts are lost, which is there's only a handful of players there. Be very sad to see it go, but I understand we're here to support the ratepayers, and the majority of the ratepayers would be in the football club. There's a squash over the last 20 years has diminished considerably. 20 years ago, many people played squash. It was their form of exercise, where these days most of them join a gym and they go to the gym. In all fairness, also, I actually believe that the squash club they should have been recruiting years ago, not just now, and instead of just sitting back and being compliant. And as far as putting an extra metre in, when I was speaking to Ruben, he was saying, and I do thank him for his conversation, his phone call, but he was saying that if they had that they could perhaps let the football club use those extra 2 courts on the weekends. But if you put an extra metre in for the squash courts, and then the football club is sharing the courts, who's responsible for the electricity then? That's going to cause a whole nother problem. So yeah, it's not that I want to see the squash courts go. It's just that I think that it's more important probably to keep the majority of families and into sport than just a handful. So that's my opinion.
Councillor Little.
Yeah, I agree totally with Councillor Fraser in that regard. Also, I thank Ruben for his phone call the other day too as well. My problem is the council should have done something years ago for South Gore. It's as simple as that, and we didn't. When this area was under the Manopara Council, they built the facilities, and when it was handed over to Gore back in the 70s or the 80s, I think, we haven't done nothing since. Mr. Costa's right in relation to the SANFL and AFL. I was the director of the local Barossa Light and Gawler Football League for 5 years. I've also been on the SANFL board as well. They are just hanging in there. If they don't do anything in the next 12 months or so, they will be asked to leave the association. It's as simple as that, unless they get something else to prove. And I agree with Councillor Fraser. Yes, it's sad about the squash. I used to play there in the 80s myself. We had a lot of people and then all of a sudden it waned in the 90s. It waned again in 2000. So I stopped going there because the competition wasn't there and there was no recruitment drive. Ruben has his heart set on it. I can understand that, but we've got other facilities in everywhere else. I cannot see why 10 months ago or 8 months ago, we allowed South Gore to do that. They control the lease. And sad maybe that 31 people may miss out, but we've got 260 to 280 people that are members of the South Gore Club who are ratepayers. I'll say about 90% of those are ratepayers and 10% would be out of the town. So they bring people into the town as well, that club. And same as Williston does with Roseworthy and things like that. Most of the clubs do, but you must have the facilities. They are a wider part of football into the Barossa Valley into here. The Barossa Valley premises 90% of the time make South Gore look embarrassed, and that's not the way it should be in competition. So I won't be supporting the motion. I believe it's sad the squash club's got to go. Maybe we should look at building new squash courts when we revamp the area down where the tennis courts are now, need a swimming pool, but at the moment, South Gore will need that area. Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Yeah, I appreciate all the concerns from the football club, but to me, I just feel like as a council, we do have some sort of role to make sure that, you know, everyone gets an opportunity, and it's not just there's a difference between, I guess, democracy and then just sort of, well, these people have more than these people so they can take over the building. If we applied that to most other situations, I don't think, if they said, oh, well, the community house has a lot of space, but we could be putting a Coles there. I know that's not a one-to-one, but, I just don't think as an argument in itself that, well, there's more people here. It doesn't really, it just doesn't feel like something that, I think it would be great if we could get some more support for the football club, but I just don't know. I don't have the expertise on what that thing is they need aside from, because this is all, as I understand it, just small fixes. Like this isn't the way to permanently address their problems. It's just another step in trying to deal with it. And I think there's maybe, greater things that we could be doing, but look, I'm still not sure what a lot of those things could be, because I just haven't seen that. But I don't know. I just don't think that, saying, well, this group has more people is sort of stands that much as an argument on its own.
Thank you. Councillor Ballalonga, you wish to speak?
Can I ask then the CEO the question I asked before?
CEO?
You there?
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, through the chair, as everybody's aware, this matter's been before council a number of times, and as a consequence of the last deliberations of council, the mayor and I have met with both the squash club representatives and the football club representatives, where negotiations occurred in good faith. But it's clear that the future of South Gawler Football Club is very much predicated on the need for adapting the existing facilities. And they've put it to the Mayor and I in no uncertain terms, and Mr. Costa has reiterated this point tonight, that even he hoped that there would be a solution to accommodate the squash club and the football club, but that's just not possible. And reluctantly, we're at this position with staff presenting the recommendation in terms of a facility that has the greater good and benefit for the community and the greater number of members of the community. Who would that be? And that's football. The administration has sought, and through council resolutions, we've lodged applications for grant funding for change room facilities as an attempt to provide new facilities for the football club in terms of change rooms. That wasn't successful. Yes, the football club are looking at other options, but that's a very long-term proposition. And the resolution as presented here in terms of negotiating, those negotiations have been had, and there's no proposition, at least from the football club, in terms of being able to accommodate that. So I don't see that there's any other option apart from what's been presented in the council's administration's report forming part of the agenda.
Any other discussion at this stage? Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Look, I've maintained all the way along that it's quite frustrating for this elected member to be brought in on the tail end of this conversation. And now what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, well, maybe there is a solution. Maybe there's something that we can do to allow and take in my opinion, maybe take a risk on a facility that has been, as shown, has been decreasing in numbers. Now, I absolutely admire Ruben's passion and his ability to lobby, and I've really enjoyed my conversations with Ruben and Cozzy as well since this has been going on. Two passionate members of the community that are passionate about their clubs. What I am a little bit frustrated with is the fact that we're here now. Everything points against squash. They're up against it. And unfortunately, to change anything from the status quo, I have again maintained that we as elected members need to make the right business decision for our community, for our ratepayers. And I'm going to need something more than, oh, well, let's give it a go at the detriment of our worst facility in the Barossa League. That is well known throughout. Our leagues as a whole, realistically, Williston Centrals and Gawler South are falling behind in that aspect. Now, I do note the Apex master plan. I do note the Carbethan Reserve plan. If there was some sort of master plan or something like that in tow for the Gawler South Footy Club, there might be a difference in my feeling and my thought process. But the way that it sits as we speak right now, I can only look at it in the holistic approach of what more, how much of my community will benefit from one or the other decision. I understand Councillor Davies' points, and look, I respect that opinion, and I respect the opinion of all the elected members here. But as a council, as the business operators that we're supposed to be directing council, I can't see how taking on this risk, 10,000 in the bank. I've installed new meters. 5,000 is the minimum expense of just the meter, and that's one item. That's one item that we're going to have to manage ourselves through. If we change the status quo, what are Gawler South going to come to us requesting? They've just spent $30,000 on a solar system. How does that work? They've just spent X amount of money doing up the facility and replacing lights and cleaning, et cetera, et cetera. How do we reimburse them for that? How do we do all this? Now, these are questions that could rightfully be asked by Gawler South Football Club, who, if we want to go back to the actual point, we are literally in an agreement with the Gawler South Football Club and no one else, as the same point with the Gawler Central's Footy Club and the Williston Footy Club. Now we're talking about potentially doing a custom organisation because the people that use the very facility couldn't sort it out between themselves. Now we're going to step in and we're going to take on that risk for the greater community and the ratepayer base we're here. Again, I'm saddened that it's come to this. I really, really am. And I wish there was some intervention back in 2015. I wish the growing pains was known and some predictions made and council maybe stepped in, but everything's good in hindsight. We're here right now in 2022, and these are the problems that need to be resolved. And we have, and these are the solutions that our leasee is putting forward. And we even have staff that have investigated and invested that time as per our direction to come to the same conclusion. I am saddened and frustrated, but I didn't become an elected member not to have to make these hard calls. And unfortunately, I don't have enough on my plate to go away from the status quo.
Thank you. There'll be no further discussion. Councillor Deputy Mayor Hughes, you can wrap up the debate. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I think...
Oh, hang on a minute. Councillor Vallelonga, did you wish to speak? Sorry, David.
Sorry, David. Mayor, or CEO, I'm not sure how to tackle what I'm trying to say. Can a motion be put on to, because we talk about that there's been applied for grants and stuff like that, but has there really been an application, and if there hasn't been a real application, can we make an application for a grant for renovations and extension of the football club?
Of course you can. You're
as councillors, we don't know.
We'll do that at another time, but that's a separate matter. We're dealing with the matter that's on the table at the moment.
But it's important, Mayor, that we do, because it's an important part of this.
I know it's important, but I'd like to focus on the job at hand that we've got in front of us. So if there's no further discussion, I'll ask David Hughes to wrap up the debate. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I sort of agree with Councillor Vallelonga that about the grants. There were grants for change rooms, which Gawler South was unsuccessful for. But yeah, the whole change rooms. I think that and Councillor Shanks also sort of pointed this. We've sort of gone down this road, and I think this is the easy way. Unfortunately, like an easy out for council, and I don't know if it's such a great outcome for our community or the football club at the end of the day either. If this motion is defeated, I think as a council we need to be strategic. We shouldn't be looking at cheap fixes. We should be looking at master plans and bigger picture ways and working with our sporting clubs. And that doesn't just include Gawler South, it's the other football clubs as well. Their change rooms certainly need work, but it's something that working with the football clubs, they all have budgets. You heard tonight that the squash courts have got $10,000 of their own money and access to another $10,000. There's a lot of community groups and very small community groups that got money in the bank, and we've got 200 of them. We should be working with our community groups, not sort of losing our community groups. And that's my concern, because once squash is gone, I don't think we'll get a squash club back in Gawler again. And yeah, it's a squash facility. I mean, I hope the outcome would be a great change rooms and everything else, but this is a squash court's been changed repurpose. I don't think it's a great outcome for the football club. I'd ask you to support the motion for the shared facilities lease for the squash club. I think they can really change things around having their own lease. They haven't had one, and I think it's really important for this club to be able to exist in the future. Otherwise, they won't exist. Thanks, councillors.
So I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please vote. All those against, please vote. So the motion is lost. Now, Councillor Hughes, you've got a subsequent.
Yeah, I've got a subsequent one. I don't want to waste council's time too long, but I still would like to go through the motion.
Yeah.
And this includes negotiating with the school sub. I mean, they don't play football during the week. Whether there is room to keep a sublease of those facilities for the squash courts, they've got money in the bank. This is a chance for them just to keep those two courts going, and hopefully keep the club. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder, Councillor Kosh? You happy to be second?
Yep, sure would.
Do you wish to speak at all?
Oh, it's probably the same message. I think we need to do everything we can to help this club, that we don't lose a club. And I think if you can, come to some arrangement, that would be really nice, because I do think it's going to look very poorly on our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Hughes, are you happy for me to put that motion? All those in favour, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote. All those against, please vote. The motion is lost. Thank you.
Ask for a division, please.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Hughes has asked for a division. All those in favour, please vote now so I can call out your names. So all those in favour are Councillor Hughes, Councillor Davies and Councillor Kosh. Now, all those against, please vote now and I'll call your names out, please. All those against are Councillor Ballalonga, Councillor Fraser, Councillor Goldstone, Councillor Little, Councillor Samble and Councillor Shanks. The motion is lost. Did you get that, Chris? I didn't abstain. So it's lost 3-6. Yep, thank you. So thank you. We'll move back to 10.1 and we have an officer's recommendation. We've got Councillor Ballalonga and Councillor Little in that order. Do you wish to move the motion, Councillor Ballalonga? Yep. Do you wish to speak at all? Jim, do you wish to speak at all? No. Councillor Little, do you wish to speak at all?
Yeah, only briefly. I think everything's been said. Great, an excellent debate. I've seen both points of view, but we have to keep a club going that's got 260 to 270 members. To me, it's a financial obligation on the council to look after our ratepayers. I'm concerned if we let the South Gawler Football Club fold, that then we would upset the balance and we'd be up for more cost than we are at the moment. So I would urge everybody to support this motion. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, hang on. We've got Councillor Shanks and Councillor Kosh in that order.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, this is the very much the same lease that we are entering into with our other football clubs here. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's around 350 members they're up to now. Councillor Little And from that, you can imagine the feeding length of that in our community. I mean, I think there's been figures thrown around of 2,000 to 2,500 people they support through their membership. And we do know that new teams are coming online that's been previously discussed. This continues that strength. And look, I won't repeat myself too much. It is with a heavy heart of what this means for another community club. And it's not an easy decision as an elected member. I just wish there was conversations that were able to be had back in 2015. So we didn't find ourselves in this position. But look, this particular lease agreement is a matter of process and aligns with all the other footy clubs that this great town does have as well.
Thank you, Councillor Kosh.
Look, again, I'm just going to say that it's a sad day when we're losing a club for no fault of their own. They've worked hard to build themselves up. They lost courts. They couldn't run their competition, which sort of was a bit of a, puts them on the back foot. And then we say they haven't got the numbers. Well, the court was taken away from them. So no fault of their own. They were put under the pump. They have been paying. We've got the records to show they've been paying. They've paid in good faith because they understood and they knew that they could stay in that facility and play. And then all of a sudden they're told, well, sorry, you've got to go now because our needs are greater than your needs. So I think it's a sad day, and I think the community will judge us very poorly over this decision. Thank you.
Councillor Ballalonga. You need to unmute, Jim. That's it. Lovely. Thank you.
When can I put that motion through? At the end of the meeting?
No, if you wish to do a motion like that, as in going for grants, in my view, it would need to be a motion on notice.
Okay, I'll do that then.
Okay, no problem. Councillor Davies.
Look, I agree with Councillor Shanks that we were brought in on this very late, and to some extent, this is sort of just the natural end point it was heading to without us. But what it does come down to is that we weren't able to protect the squash courts from destruction. So thank you to Ruben and the other community members who've been passionately talking about this, but that's what it's come to in the end.
Deputy Mayor Hughes, you had your hand up. Did you want to speak?
I still see this as the easy out, or it's not strategic at all. It's not for the benefit of our whole community. It's the benefit of the football club, and things like this should have been sorted, as Councillor Shanks and Davies have said, but also thought of about others in our community and smaller groups. This is not something that a healthy community of Gawler sort of looks up to at all. We do have a lot of community groups with only 6 to 10 or 12 members that have got really proud histories and really strong connections to our town and do a lot in our community, and they are all our ratepayers. Yes, we've got 3 football clubs. That's great, and it is good for our community. I think that this is just an easy out to hand over the squash courts to the football club to do what they want with them. But for the last couple of years, the poor squash court has been wound down by, I think, the actions of the football club, taking a squash court off them, knocking a wall in squash courts, making it difficult. The squash club have tried to not play squash on weekends and things like that to help the football club out. They've let them set gyms up in their rooms. They've tried to work together, and the easy out is to kick the squash court off out of the squash centre and change it into change rooms, which is just, it's not strategic. I think we're smarter than that as a community. Councillor Ballalonga's talking about grants, which we need to be a lot smarter and have master plans and look to the future. And that includes all of our sporting groups. So things like this don't happen in the future. I'd like to thank Ruben and all the squash players that have contacted me over the last 12 months or so. And even prior to that, we did get some contact from squash saying there was things going on at the squash courts too. I just think this is a disappointing outcome if this gets up, which it probably will. So yeah, I won't be voting for it. And yeah, again, I'll be calling for a division at the end.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank you, Ruben, for your passion and commitment, and all the people that have come along and spoken in support of the squash club. However, I will now wrap up the debate. Councillor Ballalonga, you can wrap up the debate. You happy for me to put the motion, Jim? Yeah, is that a yes? Yep, okay, cheers. I'll put that motion. All those in favour of the motion, please vote now. All those against, please vote as well. The motion is carried. Now, Deputy Mayor, you wish to call a division?
Yes, please. I wish it recorded.
Yep, call the division. So all those in favour, please vote now, and I'll call your names out. Councillor Fraser, Councillor Ballalonga, Councillor Little, Councillor Shanks, Councillor Samble, Councillor Goldstone. All those against? Councillor Davies, Councillor Hughes and Councillor Kosh. The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ruben. Okay, moving on to 10.2. We have an officer's recommendation. And I'd like to welcome Jane Lovell from MFY Proprietary Limited. Jane, you're here to answer any questions that elected members might have. Do you want to make any opening comments at all, Jane?
Thank you, Mayor. Probably the first one, just a small correction in the minutes that I'm not going to be answering any questions relating to item 10.1.
Obviously. Without saying. Do you wish to make any comments, Jane?
Yes, so perhaps just give a brief summary of the situation at Edith Street, which is obviously detailed in quite a bit of data in the report. But fundamentally, the traffic conditions on Edith Street are a function of the road network, which is not a consistent road hierarchy for people that are wanting to get from A to B. People that are coming along Murray Road and should be then using that access as a collector road to get onto the arterial road network are able to bypass the arterial road network using what are ostensibly local roads, and local roads that were not envisaged to carry the traffic volumes that they currently carry, in that they are residential streets. So absolutely there are significant numbers of traffic that are coming down Edith Street that are not local to the people that live on Edith Street, Blanche Street and Short Street. A majority of those drivers are probably coming from elsewhere in the local Gawler catchment because of the connection of Edith Street to Murray Road. They're likely to be residents of Williston East or Hewitt, and they are, as we all do, choosing the most convenient route for them to get from A to B. Now, fundamentally, this creates two problems which I think council need to grapple with. The first is what level of traffic that are from people that are not local to the Edith Street, Blanche Street, Short Street area is council comfortable having using those roads? And the second is, if those roads were had those volume reductions made to them by whatever means, whether they be traffic calming devices which have an impact on driver route choices, whether they traffic control devices which slow people down, whether they traffic control devices that provide inconvenience in terms of congestion, bearing in mind that that potentially carries some crash risk with it as well. Council also needs to really consider what that would do to the adjacent road network, because effectively what would happen is that those drivers would transfer from the roads they currently use out onto the arterial road network, and that arterial road network is already congested. So there are, unfortunately, a couple of difficult decisions there for council in terms of how it would like to have Edith Street, Blanche Street, Short Street operating, and also what measures could be put in place so that if there was a transference of traffic, how that gets managed on the arterial road network, because that has obviously then got broader risk, delay, congestion, accessibility issues, not just for the residents of this area, but also for the broader community.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser, are you happy to move the officer's recommendation?
Yes, I am, but I also had a question, if that's possible.
If you present your motion, you can ask your question.
Yeah, well, I am happy to move the officer's recommendation. So, what I wanted, well, my grandchildren go to school. One of them goes to school at Trinity Gardens, and there's a road either side of the school, and the northern road has speed cushions on it, but they're not short speed cushions. They basically got a bicycle lane break on by the gutters, and otherwise the cushion goes right across the road. And it's really quite broad. It's really quite a wide cushion. It's, like it's obviously goes across the road, but it's also quite wide as well. And it really does, most cars try and avoid it unless they have to go there, because it's just annoying. You have to slow down and slow down and slow down and slow down. And that really stops, a lot of traffic. In here, the speed cushions seem to be only really narrow and just like on either side of the road, not across the road. So my question is it better to have them going like that or across the road?
Jane?
Through the Mayor, thank you for your question. I think that there are a number of different options that you could look at in terms of the actual traffic control and the type of cushions that could be put in. The picture that was presented in the report was just an example of what a traffic cushion looks like, just so that people understand it's not a hump that goes fully from one side of the road to the other, but that there are gaps in between the cushions and also to the edge of the road. Now, ultimately, one of the benefits of cushions is that they are able to accommodate emergency vehicles better because they can straddle the cushions. And also there are options for cyclists to be able to ride without riding over the device as well. So they get to maintain their speed along the road as well. So certainly there are a number of options, and it really does come down to what is trying to be achieved. So certainly there's no intent that these cushions are supposed to be so small that people can straddle them with a four-wheel drive. They do need to be wide enough that people have to mount both sides of the cushion, or at least if they do put their wheel into the middle of between the two of them, that they have then got the other wheel on a substantial part of the cushion as well. In answer to your question, not necessarily like what's in the picture, but one of the things that can be looked at in terms of the technical assessment of what we're trying to achieve with the cushions themselves.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? I know a few people got their hands up. Who wishes to second the motion? So Cody Davies, you had your hand up before. Councillor Kosh, are you happy to second the motion? Councillor Davies?
Yes.
Do you wish to speak at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm supporting this as what the actual recommendation is that we go out to community consultation, which I support. A lot of the rest of it is just noting that the traffic investigation has happened. I've heard from obviously residents at Edith Street that they have some things to say about the current results, but which is why it would be good to be able to put it out for community consultation so that they can send in formal responses to it, so that it can come back to us and we can make a decision based on that further consideration. So yeah, that's why I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Kosh and then Councillor Shanks.
Yep, thanks, Mayor. It's a question for Mr. Lovell. Is there any, just looking at the graphs and everything else and the peaks, when the peaks are, is that an indication of the vehicles going to the school? Can I make that summation or not?
Through the Mayor, that certainly seems to be the case. It's
right.
Difficult to know whether or not they are actually the people themselves going to and from the school. I mean, the Hewitt Primary School catchment doesn't extend beyond that local area. So whether or not they're actually travelling to and from the school, or whether or not at the time that the school traffic is generally on the road in Gawler, whether they be going to the local public schools or whether they go to some of the private schools, that is a time of peak congestion on the road network. So it may be that actually it's just a function of the fact that the arterial road is congested at those times, and so people are using Edith Street at those times. I think it's also worth pointing out that the peak hour volumes are indicating that there are more people using the road than you would generally expect in a peak hour. So the roads themselves, Edith Street North sitting at around 2,100 to 2,300 cars a day. Its peak hour volumes are up around 300 cars in the two-way volumes. And typically you would see that at about 10% of the daily traffic, not, closer to 15%. So there certainly seems to be a weighting of the use of it as a cut-through. Having said that, I also acknowledge that cut-through movements are happening outside of those peak times as well. And again, that's a function of not only what's happening on the arterial road network, but also of the origin and destination of the people who are travelling through these roads, but this is possibly just a more convenient route for them to get home. And if you are coming down Murray Road and you have an option of wanting to get to Lyndock Road, of keeping on coming down Murray Road, getting onto Murray Street, turning at the signal and travelling up Lyndock Road, or ducking through Edith Street, it's a no-brainer.
Councillor Shanks.
Just had a couple of questions, if I could, before I speak to the motion. Jane, firstly, thanks for presenting. So I've got three questions. One, the video evidence that you've based your rat running, assertions on were in 2 3-hour windows on one day. So therefore 6 hours total. I guess my question would be, with data, especially with what's being told to elected members by residents of this street, would have it not been better to record Monday through Sunday for the whole period? I'm getting reports that hours before you even started recording is when rat running starts, from even as early as 4:30 in the morning. Yes, we got the traffic volume, but the rat running factor was based on video footage.
Yes, I'll answer that one through the Mayor. The camera footage and the origin destination footage is very labour intensive, because you actually just need somebody sitting there watching a car where they turn and then watching it for it to come out at the other end. So it's a very expensive way of collecting data. What we did was focus on what would be the main times when you would normally see a concern with rat running, being the peak hour traffic times. And absolutely, that's demonstrated that there is a substantial number of people that are using these streets that are not local to them. And it's in the order of 75 to 80% in peak hours. Now, whether or not that drops to 50% or 30% or whatever at 4:30 in the morning actually doesn't fundamentally change the findings of what this is showing, or the recommendations. It's basically saying there is an issue here that's fundamentally linked to both the alignment and the hierarchy of the road network and the congestion on the arterial road network. And it's something that council has got an opportunity to address, and whether that's an opportunity to address it by virtue of traffic calming or an opportunity to address it by virtue of preventing those movements from happening. Certainly the data is significant enough and substantial enough to say to council, this is something that's well worth your consideration because this road is not functioning as you intend it to in your road hierarchy.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Next one, your recommendation is the road closure at the railroad tracks. Why that location opposed to, say, the mouth of Edith Street or a one-way, or like, how did you arrive there?
So there was actually a couple of options that we looked at in terms of the opportunities to reduce the traffic volumes. So there was actually a one-way recommendation or one-way assessment done of what that would mean, and the one that we chose was the best outcome for the arterial road network. Might just take a step back and say there are two types of predominant traffic movement that's happening from the arterial road network through Edith Street. One is that people are coming from the east and travelling to the north. So they're coming along Lyndoch Road and going up Murray Road. And the other is they're coming down Murray Road and travelling to Lyndoch Road. If that traffic was using the arterial road network, what it would do is it would increase the right turning movements from Lyndoch Road into Murray Street, and it would increase the left turning movements from Murray Street into Lyndoch Road. From a traffic signal capacity perspective, the left turning movements from Murray Street to Lyndoch Road, while they would be substantially greater if all of the traffic that currently uses Edith Street was put through the signal, that additional traffic volume would be much more likely to be accommodated on the road network because it's the left turning movement that happens during the major traffic phase of the signal, which is to have the traffic flowing Murray Street to Murray Street. If you were to increase the traffic volumes for the right turning movement, so Lyndoch Road into Murray Street, that would have a significant impact on the capacity of the entire road network, because what it means is that your green time, the amount of time that the light is green for that right turn movement, would have to increase because you've got a lot more traffic to get through the signal. And when you have traffic turning right at a T intersection, the traffic can't turn in any other direction. So, as you know, can't go through Murray Street to Murray Street in either way because you've got to stop both of those flows of traffic to get the right turning movement to happen. So we did look at what the traffic volumes would be like if we were to put a partial block in at the intersection of Edith and Murray Road. And that would be if you were to let people still travel through there from Edith into Murray, then it would mean that all of the people that currently have that path through the road network would still be able to do it, and they wouldn't transfer, or they would be careful with it being absolute, but if you put in other traffic calming devices, you would still get some transference. But for the main, that movement would still balance itself out, if you like. So you wouldn't be putting 100% of that right turning traffic out to the signal.
Okay. I want to keep moving because I think we won't get through our agenda. So Nathan, can you ask your third question if you can?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I guess a point with your professional expertise. The fact of the matter is, as you've pointed out tonight, Edith Street isn't designed to be able to take the volume of traffic that it currently is because it's a historic road. But do you agree that the main artillery roads are designed to take a particular volume regardless of waiting times at lights?
We'll probably just clarify that a couple of things. The first is that the traffic volumes that are on Edith Street are not necessarily a problem for the capacity of Edith Street. It's an amenity issue for the residents. When you look at Murray Road, the width of Murray Road and the cross section of Murray Road is not that much different to Edith Street South. So it really comes down to what the intent of the road is sitting within the road hierarchy. I do think that the arterial road network is obviously where you want the majority of traffic to be, and the arterial roads in and of themselves can cope with much greater traffic volumes than are currently on them. But every time you have a signalised intersection on an arterial road, it is a point at which you have to manage how you get all of that traffic through. So you can't put more traffic through that intersection without increasing the queues and delays. And part of what we have suggested is to say, when you're consulting with the community at large, as well as the community with Edith Street, is that really we need to have an understanding of what the likely impacts are on that signal, because it's not an easy fix to increase the capacity of that signal.
Thank you. Now, did you wish to speak, Nathan?
Yeah, look, I will. I'm happy to support the recommendation as it sits, because it does promote some more action, some more work in the space. I think we can agree that there is a problem here. And although, you know, we can say, look, yeah, technically the road might be able to take it. We know full well, as the town of Gawler, what heritage is around that area and what that was designed for in the initial town planning. Yes, there has been some growth in Gawler, obviously. There's been changes at the intersection of our main arterial roads, or government roads, and also some blind spot works that we've done. But is that now the people at Edith Street's problem to deal with? As Julian pointed out, a car every 26 seconds in a residential area. I mean, we have our main roads and we have our residential streets. This one's sitting a bazaar in between, that they're dealing with safety concerns that they brought to us originally, that has made us look into these items quite closely. And I think this motion, the way that it sits, allows that work to keep on going. I'm interested to see the community consultation in this, because I think we're at the point now where we need to unpack the solutions and target our efforts in making sure that we're recommending solutions that, one, the residents want, two, that are acceptable by the Gawler community as a holistic view. And I think that's what this motion is hopefully tasked with. And yeah, we probably really need to unpack that. I guess the soft cushioning, my own opinion, I drive a four-wheel drive and they don't touch the sides, to be completely honest. I'm not driving like a maniac. It's just they don't slow me down. And talking to the residents in those areas, from 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, they're seeing people like myself driving to their sites, not only a full drive, but towing a trailer that's built to be able to get onto work sites and deal with the undulations of the land. So I think there's solutions to be had, but we need to be very careful we don't just install a quick band-aid, because I think we'll have the same group of ratepayers back at us saying exactly the same thing, and we'll do exactly the same studies. And I really want to ensure that we get in front of that, and now is the opportunity to do so.
Cheers. Thank you. Next is Councillor Samble and then Councillor Ballard.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mayor Karen. And to you, Lynn, and how you've spoke tonight, very passionate. I think the part that bothers me, maybe the question to you, Jane, where do the police fit into all of this? You know, I don't know. I've been around a fair while, and you know, like
Jane's not going to answer a question about SAPOL. I don't think she's not here.
Hang on. I read a whole pile of reports. There's nothing about the police, and I hear that Lynn Mitchell, who is very passionate, along with the other people in Edith Street, you know, they're trying to wave cars down. They're getting abused and everything, the whole lot. Where do the police fit in with this? And the other thing I'd just like to say is that this is not only happening at Edith Street, but other people are just not bothering to talk about it because of all this that's gone on. And that there's problems on First Street. And I was talking to a police officer the other day. He said, man, oh man, how there's not accidents where they come out of First Street because it's a quick way to get on out. All those streets are becoming busier and busier and busier, with over 100,000 cars a day commuting around our town. But to me, I'm not hearing anything about maybe the police could do what Lynn is trying to do, and the residents of Edith Street to slow them down. Put a radar gun in there. I'll tell you what, after they get...
I would suggest you take it up with the Gawler Police Station, and I know they have been there.
Yeah, no worries. We're talking...
I'd suggest you take it up with SAPOL and Gawler, and they'll give you an appropriate answer, I'm sure.
Not interested in that.
Fine. Oh, okay.
Well,
they're the ones that can. They're the only ones that can answer the question, I think, Brian. Okay. Councillor Ballalonga.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to. There's a couple of people I'm going to direct to.
The questions come to me with all due respect. So.
Yeah, but this is through you, Mayor. Now, to Lynn, I can understand that you want to close the road, but we cannot close that road. You must understand that, because you're going to create another problem, right? But now, and I really feel sorry for the people and the residents of Edith Street, and I can understand that. We're trying to solve the problem. I believe that Edith Street started with stuff up of Lyndock Road and the stuff they've done in front of Faster Pastor. Now, can I direct this to Sam? Is there any way of fixing that problem? Because that could fix the problem at Edith Street.
Well, Sam, that was a black spot, wasn't it? There'd been crashes.
Yeah, but now it's a stuff up stop.
Well, I don't actually agree. I think it's much safer.
Well, Mayor, you don't drive around Gawler like I do.
Well, I drive around Gawler all the time. So, yeah. So, do you want to say anything else, Jim?
No, well, I asked Sam a question. I would like him to answer it.
Sam, are you going to take out the pedestrian haven out of the black spot, which was funded by the, was it the state government?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, this is very difficult, and managing traffic in Gawler is very difficult, particularly in this location. What we've tried to do is find a balance in that location, High Street, Lyndock Road, where we're, obviously had to compromise some capacity through the intersection through longer queues on Lyndock Road to get a safer pedestrian crossing place, and obviously the broader benefits of linking with the Gawler cycleway that's being developed. So. It's acknowledged that there were impacts on there would be impacts, but we were also addressing, as the Mayor has advised, a known black spot with multiple crashes and that qualified for black spot criteria. So it was 100% funded. That's how bad the intersection was. It was 100% funded through the federal government, and you won't get 100% funding unless it's that notorious black spot. So there's, I think the benefits, in my opinion, in terms of that intersection, far outweigh the negatives, and that was ultimately the decision that was supported by council.
Thank you, Councillor Goldstein.
Yeah, just quickly, I will support the motion because it really is just a noting recommendation. The only thing I wanted to raise was the issue of the increase in population, which is obviously going to impact this actual junction. Especially if Concordia goes and other areas. So I can only see the matter getting worse. The question I had was population levels factored into any solution in relation to this? Or population increases, I should say.
The impact of Concordia, and I know that the eastern bypass that will take you out to Sturt Highway is a solution. But it won't happen until Concordia is developed and funded accordingly. So I think you're right, talking that, those population, and there's been strategic plans and directions reports made around transport that includes the impact of Concordia, and they already exist, I believe. That particular type of carriageway that would take you from the Barossa Valley Highway through to the Sturt Highway, through Concordia, wherever they choose to put it, will make a huge impact in through traffic, I think, because that's a really easy way of getting straight out And the people that use Murray Road from east to north go straight up and go straight onto the highway.
Yeah.
Straight up the top onto Main North Road, over the roundabout at McKinley Estate, straight up. And yeah, they're doing it most of the day. So yeah, that would be quite an ease. But you're right, population growth has an impact, doesn't it?
It does. When, I mean, you know, in the 70s, we had a population of less than 10,000, and now we're more than double that. So, and it's going to increase. So it's going to affect a lot of the roads. But thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kosh, you've got your hand up.
Look, I'll be supporting the motion because it is to do with consultation, the broader community. I'd just like to make a couple of comments regarding population growth in Concordia. From my understanding, the traffic will come down across Cheek Avenue, will come into Gawler via Cheek Avenue. So that's one of the main reasons why we need to look at boundary reform, so we get some of those traffic interventions in place. If you want to solve some traffic issues, you talk to the developers because they have to fund those, and that's what happens. With the Lyndock High Street intersection, I'm not saying I love it, but I think it's a good solution to a black spot. I don't know how many near misses I've seen on that corner before that the intervention, people turning into High Street from Lyndock Road. You'd see a lot of them. I think in the report it said there was 4 casualties. I think is that right? I think I read that. So it is a notorious black spot, and for a little bit of queuing, we're saving people's lives. So I think it's a good intervention to save people's lives over a little bit of queuing. So anyway, I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Fraser, you can close the debate.
Yes, thank you. I think overall the realignments of the roads will slow people down from whizzing around the corners, so that will slow stuff down. Also, we can't totally take all the traffic out of Edith Street. I mean, you've obviously got local, but if we took all the other traffic out, the arterial roads won't handle it. But if we can slow them down, and then when it's not busy, like early hours of the morning, if the traffic devices on Edith Street create them to slow down too much, they'll use the arterial road early hours of the morning rather than have to go over those. So, but once again, it is going out for public consultation, and it is, but I quite like what's in there. I think it will make a big difference to the traffic.
So I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. All those against, please vote as well. It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Now moving on to 10.3, for shared use path head agreement. Deputy Mayor Hughes, are you happy to move the officer's recommendation?
Yes, Mayor. It's just a fairly straightforward noting and approval for the crossing of the department's rail cross and use of the rail, use of Dipty land. So yeah, happy to support it.
Councillor Kosh, are you happy to second?
Yeah, happy to second it. I think it's a straightforward motion. It's an improvement of our systems, the way we move around town. I think it's nice to formalise these arrangements. Thank you.
Councillor Fraser, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I have a question. Seeing as we've got a new government and council, and I know Mr. Piccolo was very keen about the tourist train. So if we are to get the tourist train, will this affect that crossing? Will that crossing affect the tourist train?
I don't think so. I think that the promise from Tony was that they would do a feasibility study if they got back into government. So he's committed to that. I know I've spoken to him on many occasions about and this would still have the integrity of the rail track. Is that not correct, Sam?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The agreement that we're signing gives the state government the authority to enforce the council to remove this this crossing place at any time. However, as the mayor said, there's obviously a process that they would go through in consideration of that rail if it was to be revitalised. And obviously council would advocate at that time in regards to formalisation of this crossing, which can occur. You can have pedestrian crossings across railways. It just needs to require some further formalisation. And as has occurred recently with the Gawler rail electrification, there's some more improved safety measures than there have been, I suppose, historically along railways, and that requires cost. And it's just a bit of a conversation at that time as to whether or not they would support it. If we were to have this crossing fail, the fallback position would ultimately default back to Edith Street. Funny enough, in terms of the connection through as another potential alternative. But that's all. We're all just surmising at this point. There isn't a proposal yet to re-establish this Brossa line.
So that's where the train would stop, Di. That's where Tony, that was the task force so it would actually work quite well there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Hughes, you happy for me to put the motion? Yeah, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please tick. All those against? It's carried. Thank you. So I'm on page 30 now of the agenda, 10.4 Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program Phase 3. Are you happy to move that way, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'm happy to move that way. Also note that this money is for roads in community infrastructure. Yeah, so it's too late now, but if there was some forward thinking by, it may be of some way of helping the football clubs. But yeah, I'm happy to support this motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Fraser, you happy to second? I'll just get you to put your mic on, Di. Can't hear you.
Answer a question for me. Part B, Apex Park Playground to improve town accessibility. What does that mean?
$40,000. That's a piece of equipment, Sam. That's a piece of equipment. And I think that was part of Mr. Piccolo's election promise as well.
I'm assuming it's for a disability, a piece of equipment. I just didn't understand the town accessibility. I didn't understand that wording, that's all.
Inclusive place-based equipment to improve town accessibility. So it's accessibility for all.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. It's a piece of equipment, isn't it, Sam? Can you explain any further for Di? No, okay. Thank you. Cody and then Nathan.
So just a question around how this interacts with the budget as we knew it previously. Was this already factored in? Because I guess we're officially allocating it now, but does that mean that compared to the budget we were previously looking at, there's an extra 800,000, or was this provided for in some way previously?
Paul, are you here? Yeah.
Yes, through you, Mayor. It's basically just reallocating same grant dollars to different projects. So it's not bringing any new dollars to the table. It's just reallocating the funding to alternative projects.
Thank you. Councillor Sheps.
Just a question to start with, Mayor, and excuse my ignorance here, but reading the report, am I right to say by delaying and operating the current pool facility as is, we're able to move that money across and do these projects? Have I read something wrong here, or am I an idiot completely reading it wrong?
Are you looking at the financial budget implications?
Yeah, the financial implications, because there was talk about using this grant funding, or have I completely muddled myself up?
the necessary works of, so if you go up to the table, funding above the line from council's draft budget ensures received and creates financial capacity to deliver future Gawler Aquatic Centre reticulation. Reticulation, what do you mean by reticulation?
So through the chair, the original intention was to allocate the LRCIP money to the Aquatic Centre reticulation heat pump feasibility works that are underway. But
it's about the heat pump, but
heat
not
pumps
the
and the reticulation to get the pool reticulation up to code. But
so
as
you're talking, I'm sorry, David, are you talking about the filtration?
Yes, filtration, water reticulation and turnover, yes. Yes,
oh, okay.
That's right. But as was reported, I believe it was at the last council meeting, those works are now scheduled for after the next season, and they wouldn't be completed in time to satisfy the requirements of this grant program. So the administration have reallocated those funds to these projects that are currently above the line bids that will be completed in line with the grant program timing, providing the financial capacity to use the offset money for the pool works in the off season next year.
So it doesn't bring it forward, Nathan. It's still the same timeline.
Still the same timeline, but we're using the grant funding. So yeah, like for like. Okay, no worries. I misread, but I sort of got there by the looks of things. I'd like to speak to it, Mayor, if I could.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, look, I'm all for this. It does seem like a simple offset, moving money around and going, look, we were going to use this grant for this, but realistically, given council's will and where we're at, we're not going to be able to expend that money in the time we need to. So let's use it on these fundamentals and then use it as an offset later. The only point that I will just flag is the item we're talking about D, which I'm all for, by the way, the renewal of playgrounds. Obviously, I'm all for playgrounds and play space and all the stuff that promotes that active children sort of setup. The thing that I did note and conversations that we have been happening as the chamber, just a flag, we were sort of talking, and I know nothing official yet, but we were talking of new developments by default, including some sort of shade over them. So I guess through you, Mayor Sam, is that something that's being looked at for that 200 grand, or are we going to have to, in the budget process, want to up that 200 grand to 250 to allow the shade structure while we start making our intent a bit clearer, potentially of making sure we do provide shade structures in new playground developments?
Sam?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yep, thank you, Madam Mayor. The councils, as reported at the workshop, the special council meeting last week, council staff subsequently had a really good look at Carlton Road, and it is rather well provided for and catered for by natural shade. There's a substantial amount of trees in the vicinity, and I had staff investigate that from my division and made the recommendation to me that a shade structure really wasn't warranted in that location with the playground renewal, and the money was best placed in other locations, and hence the recommendation 1F in respect to seeking to reallocate some funding towards the shade provision in Aspire Estate at Greenslade Boulevard.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that clarification. I think that's very important to note, because not all shade needs to be given by a shade sale. And I do agree the tree canopy of that area is actually quite complementary to natural shade. And to be honest, that's probably my preference. But the world we live in, unfortunately, it's not always the case. And we probably have to wait 25 years for those to actually establish. So it is good that we're actually taking stock of our current facilities and assets. So yeah, look, in closing, I'm more than happy to support this. And I think it's a matter of process that I think is very smart of staff to partake on.
Any other discussion? If not, Deputy Mayor, are you happy for me to put that motion? Yep, thank you. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please vote. All those against, please vote. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we move on to 10.5, Australian Local Government Association, National General Assembly. Effectively, we're putting forward a motion on notice. There has been a previous motion that appoints myself as the delegate and the Deputy Mayor as proxy, etc. And also that the CEO will attend the ALGA National General Assembly. How do you wish to proceed, councillors? Someone happy to move the officer's recommendation? Deputy Mayor Hughes, you happy to move that way?
Yeah, because noting from previous works and meetings that the Mayor and CEO have with senators and members of Parliament and even other councils, it's a very important networking event, and it's very important for us to sell our for grants and other work. So yeah, very, very necessary that this continues.
Are you happy to second? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Are you happy to second, Councillor Samble?
Yes, certainly am, and I agree with the Deputy Mayor's comments. It's most important with the 58 councils in Australia that in South Australia that they try to be there together, and there's so much good networking that can come out of it, especially looking for grants in the future, which we will need a lot of in this coming year. So yes, I totally support it.
Councillor, thank you, Councillor Samble. Councillor Posh.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I support this motion. It's vital that we have representation at this meeting. We've got a federal election coming up, and this is the time when you lobby those different candidates about our our goals and what we want to achieve in Gawler. From memory, we were very successful getting funds for the Civic Centre because we were first off the mark, and we had all our ducks in line after an election, and we were able to get the money. So this could be another example. We'll be able to lobby and get to talk to the people that are making the decisions now and potentially in the future. So yep, I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, look, I see the value in meeting in person. What I do worry about is the fact that we're still meeting in Zoom, but we have this recommendation of showing how valuable it is to meet in person. I think some of these meetings could happen via Zoom. And look, this is a sentiment that I probably wouldn't have if we were in the chamber right now, benefiting from what is meeting in person over this platform, to be completely honest. I have to be honest, as I'm sure we all do. And yeah, look, the optics on this of now, we're going to spend, I think, $5,000 on promoting the importance of meeting in person. However, we're not doing that now. And as we've seen today, the modelling of COVID is about to go up, and we're not going to be any extra vaccinated in a couple of months. Nothing changes except for the numbers going up. To be honest, I support the motion, and it is on the back end of some very, very difficult work that the Climate Emergency Action Plan and its members have been doing, which has been fantastic. And I think the motion has a lot of merit. I just think we're also inviting a lot of there's a lot of questions there that I supported this in the first instance, as pointed out in the report, but a few things have changed since then. And yeah, on one hand, we look at the value of doing things on Zoom and what's available. Some of those meetings on Zoom with those ministers should, again, give the same value as what we're doing right now. Otherwise, yeah, what's the point of being here? So I'm a little bit frustrated, to be fair, and that is now probably falling into these sorts of motions where one hand we're saying it's valuable to meet in person, but here I am. So yeah, that's my honest truth and who I represent, who I'm trying to speak for. But overall, I support the actual motion that we're going to put to the General Assembly for the greater good. But yeah, putting $5,000 to send you guys over there when we can't even make it into the chamber to meet in person is a little bit of a slap in the face. So.
Thank you. I'd also like to declare a perceived conflict because I'm the person going, but it was previously endorsed in a previous motion, so I think perceived conflict is appropriate. I will fill my form out, Chris. Any other discussion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Davies.
I'm happy with the motion as mentioned before. The reason why it's not a conflict for the mayor is when not actually deciding at this meeting whether or not the mayor is going to the General Assembly. This is just noting that that's the thing that we previously decided. The motion itself, I think, is more good work from the people who've been involved in that, from our staff and community, and I think we're pushing a lot of great motions in terms of climate change across both the state LGA and the national LGA.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, Deputy Mayor, are you happy for me to put this motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please vote. Thank you. All those against, please vote. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we move over to 10.6, Gawler River Floodplain Management Authority draft annual business plan and draft annual budget. We're being asked to endorse this. Councillor Koch and Councillor Fraser in that order.
Happy to move this. The authority, I think, is doing some, well, I know is doing some great work. There's issues around flooding and we need to address that. And this this draft business plan will help us sort of move forward to, for long-term protection of our community. So I ask everybody to support it. Thank you.
Yeah, interestingly, I went to a Garrop meeting on Monday, and it'll be coming out for comment. One of our future directions is putting stormwater as a high priority, top 3 priorities. So yeah, planning, environment and stormwater. Yeah, actually it was data collection. Yeah, it was innovation and economic development was the second one. Yeah, so it's interesting that people are starting to realise the importance of getting the stormwater funded properly.
Yep, it's an issue.
Councillor Fraser.
Yes, I'm happy to second this. And yes, we need to really concentrate on our water. The last thing we need is to end up like the eastern states. That would be disastrous.
Devastating what they're experiencing. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Koch, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. All those against, also vote. Thank you. Carried unanimously. So now we're moving to information reports. We have a monthly finance report and we have the Remuneration Tribunal review of allowances for elected members of local government councils. We can move them on block if you wish, councillors. Councillor Goldstone, I think I saw you first, and then
I'm happy to move these 2 on block, Mayor.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak at all, Kelvin?
No, they're straightforward.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Is that you, Jim?
Yeah, second it.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak at all, Jim?
No, no, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion, Councillor Shanks?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm happy to move it on block. I just had a question for Paul Horde through you, Mayor. And again, I apologise for my ignorance, but can you just tell me what these colourful dots actually correspond with?
Well, green is good, red is bad.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
my basic understanding.
yeah, and in the financial report in the attachments, we also have like a brownie amber color. But typically, if you're going to use symbols in a table, we see a very basic meaning. Typically, we see a loss as a minus or in brackets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this new one, I just want to be very, very clear that I'm reading it right.
Mr. Horwood, do you want to clarify that, please?
Yes, through you, Mayor Karen, Councillor Shanks, yes, with the colour coding in the agenda and in the attachment, as the Mayor's rightly said, so the green is good in terms of favourable, red unfavourable, and with the attachment there's more of the three traffic lights, green again being favourable, red unfavourable, and the orange one essentially being recognising that that line is on target.
I'm sorry, Paul. Did I miss the key there? Did I? My apologies.
No, through you, Mayor Karen. Yes, look, I recognise there probably should be a legend key. Acknowledge that, but I'm just explaining that. Yes, what those colour codings mean.
All right, no worries.
It would be good to have a small legend at the bottom.
I mean, it's
correct.
Yeah, it's sort of sad that this day and age we have to request that because it is obvious. But however, that said, some people do use different colours different ways, and I've gotten pretty used to seeing the number in a bracket meaning a loss and the number outside a bracket not being a loss. So I guess just the consistency there, not a major point, but just to clarify.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Goldstone, are you happy for me to put the motion? Yep, awesome. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. All those against, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we'll move on along to page 50 of the agenda, and I'm up to recommendations from committees. And we're starting with the Corporate and Community Services Committee. And we've got a motion made under delegated authority. So this is just a noting motion. Somebody'd like to move that, that'd be appreciated. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You happy to move? Councillor Fraser, you happy to second? Thank you. And this is this motion made under delegated authority. If there's no discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. All those against. Carried unanimously. I'm moving on to the Regional Development Australia Barossa Gawler Light Adelaide plans. There was really good discussion about this matter at the committee meeting. How do you wish to proceed? Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Hughes, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, if I could speak to it quickly.
Yes, yeah, sure, certainly.
Yeah, I think there was some really good questions asked of Anne Moroney, and a lot of it was about communication and also trying to brand to get action in Gawler, not the Barossa as well, which so there was quite a number of comments made, which so sometimes it feels as though it does represent only the Barossa, but Gawler has a lot of industry, and around Gawler there is a lot of industry as well. So I think it's worth noting. It's important that we are a member, but we also want to get good value for our ratepayers and our community and business. So good discussion, and I think there needs to be further work to make sure that we continue to raise those issues and get good outcomes for our community.
Councillor Davies, you second. Do you wish to second the motion?
Yes, and to speak as well.
Yeah.
I think there was quite interesting discussion because it is asking us to approve funding for the next 3 years for the RDA, and we sort of need to see that we are getting equal value out of it, or at least enough value out of it that putting $40,000 a year into it is meaningful to us. And look, I think there was some good things brought up at the meeting that we didn't necessarily have that communication on during months that, it's not up for renewal, or, more than once a year or so. And because I just, because I do share those concerns about just the look of it is very, very Barossa. Like I sort of, just going to the front page of the RDA Barossa website, which is barossa.org.au. I sort of, did a search on the front page for Gola, and it appears 3 times, and that's just because the full name of RDA Barossa Gola Adelaide Plains was written out. Did a search for Barossa on the front page, and I'm getting 16 results, including Art Music Design Barossa, Barossa Campus, Barossa Business Register, Barossa and Plains Jobs, Extraordinary Everyday Barossa, Barossa.com. And, I think even if we get communication, at that meeting saying, well, here's what the RDA Barossa is doing for Gola, I think it's pretty reasonable to say, well, it doesn't feel that way a lot of the time. So, I'm happy to support the motion itself on the understanding of what they are providing. But I do think, we should be pushing to make sure that we are an equal voice.
Thank you. Councillor Shanks.
I too agree. There was good conversation. I think we didn't leave too many things unsaid, which was good. And I also think us as elected members need to be able to explain a good part of the spending here at the town of Gawler, obviously, and $40,000 is a substantial amount. There's no if, buts or maybes about that. So making sure that we're getting bang for buck is our responsibility, but it's also the responsibility of the RDA to answer the questions as well by just making sure their platforms are as inclusive as they possibly can be. I mean, I think I pointed it out on the night, barossa.org doesn't scream equal share to Gawler, does it? And there's a few things like that I think could be changed. And I hope that our opinions and our the options moving forward were voiced, I think, at this meeting. It has reminded me that I did actually want to be able to send an email to Anne Moroney. And look, I'd invite all elected members to contribute to that email, because I want to be able to dot point what I expect as an elected member, and I'd love to be able to have some assistance there where we can send that off to Anne and say, look, this is what we expect. Every 3 months, we expect this sort of data. We're not necessarily asking it to come through you. We might ask for it to come through our member, which is our own CEO. These are the things that I want to be able to reiterate as me as an elected member. But if anyone wants to jump in on that dialogue, I think communication works both ways, and I think that's a good start. Good discussion had. Happy to support the motion as it sits.
Any other discussion? If not, Deputy Mayor, happy for me to put the motion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote. All those against, please vote. Carried unanimously. So moving on to 12.1.2. Good discussion again. Are you happy to move that way, Nathan?
I am, Mayor. I just had a question through you to staff. Since we moved this motion in the CCS, it's come to my attention that the Gawler Business Development Group are pretty much done and dusted in setting up a podcast video production room. This was something that allegedly was tried with Town of Gawler, however, fell over. One, the reason I asked the question of trying to clarify that. 2, I'm not really interested in competing with the Gawler Business Development Group in an asset that we potentially could be doing. So I'm just asking for some sort of clarity around that.
I don't think it hurts to get a report even if we don't go ahead with it, we've got a report that says what's possible. So
I'm in complete agreement. That's why I moved the motion, Mayor, but I did have a question through you to staff.
Yeah. But if you're not going to go ahead with the podcast, you want to wait for the report. And, are you asking what happened?
Yeah, I'm just wanting the other side of the story here, because we moved the motion in the CCS and it's now come to light that our podcast room could have been.
I think it's probably better to take that offline. I don't think, David Barrett, you're involved, I think, but you could take that offline and discuss that with Councillor Shanks. Or do you wish to make a comment now?
Through the chair, I could resolve it pretty quickly. The Gawler Business Development Group have lodged a funding application with the Building Better Regions Fund to deliver a podcast studio. They haven't actually got one yet. There's an application in train, and we've identified the potential of having that in one of the Civic Centre rooms, subject to the further discussions with council on those room usages.
Okay.
I wrote a letter of support for that application.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for the answer there, David. Look, I agree with the Mayor. I think a report back will start trying to figure out what's best for the community. But some of the advice I'm getting, just a heads up, is it was tried with council, wasn't successful, and now they're pursuing and too deep into other spaces. I mean, that's disappointing to hear. But this particular report to come back, hopefully will iron out some of these things that are being said to us elected members out there.
Okay. Councillor Hughes, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, happy to second it. Yeah.
Happy to second it. Okay. Do you wish to speak at all?
Just quickly, we did actually have a really good discussion at the CCS meeting, and looked at the University Student Learning Hub as a really good opportunity. I think getting a report back in that regard is good. But yeah, just how we can use these spaces better. It was a very good discussion.
Mr. Ennett, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just further to David's comments, it was as recently as Monday that we had a conversation with both the chair of the Gawler Business Development Group and Karen Brom, and that, as David said, there is a grant application that they're pursuing. They've certainly communicated that although they might look at other options, that they're keen to have discussions with us about rooms at the Civic Centre, and that they're certainly not committing to any other venue at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Shanks, are you happy for me to put the motion? Yeah, good. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. Carried unanimously. So we'll move on to Gawler activation budget. Now, Councillor Posh, did you want to declare a conflict?
Yes, I'd like to declare perceived conflict of interest, the same I declared at the CCS meeting. It's around my advocacy for a artisans market, which potentially could be in Walker Place. And as the report includes Walker Place in that, I feel I've got a perceived conflict and be asked to be put into the waiting room. Thank you.
David, can you accommodate that? Thank you very much. And Councillor Posh is in the waiting room. So, okay, so we've got... You happy to move that way, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, if I can speak quickly.
Yep.
Yeah, we did have a good discussion about this and wanted further breakdown of the expenses and costs, which will come back through this motion. So yeah, be another good discussion when this comes back to the next meeting. So yeah, I think the motion is quite acceptable.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Are you happy to I think I saw you first, Nathan. You had your hand up. Happy to second. Do you wish to speak at all? No, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, all those against. All those in favour. Oh, that's carried. Thank you. We can let Councillor Kosh back in. Thank you, David. Policy review. It's fairly straightforward. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Goldstone? Do you wish to speak at all? No. You happy to second, Deputy Mayor? Do you wish to speak at all? Any other discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. All those against, please vote as well. Councillor Kosh? You haven't voted. Oh, you just got back on your chair. Councillor Kosh, you just need to vote.
What are we voting on?
We're voting on the policy.
Okay, yep, I read those. Yep.
Arts exhibits and exhibitions.
Yep, I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you. Carried unanimously. So over the page, we're Youth Advisory Committee meeting. So we've got Jade Hancock recommended to be chair. You want to move that way, Councillor Davies?
Yes.
Yep, great.
So just to speak to it. Yeah, I think both Jade and Amelia are first time to chair or deputy chair position on the YAC, and it's great that we're able to rotate around and get a lot of young people getting more involved with all of this stuff. I also like to thank Renee Chamberlain and Jack Gill, the chair and deputy chair from the previous year, who've both been doing some great work over that year. But yeah, Jade is someone who has.
Do you want to add that in as a thank you? Do you want to add that?
Yes.
In?
Yeah.
So what were the words, Cody?
Thank outgoing Chair Renee Chamberlain and Deputy Chair Jack Gill
for their service and contribution.
Yeah, well, they're not retiring from the committee, but for their service as chair and deputy
as chair and deputy chair. What have you got there, Chris? Thank outgoing Chair Renee Chamberlain and Deputy Chair Jack Gill for their service and contribution in their respective roles as chairperson and deputy chairperson. Happy with that, Councillor Davies?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Need an N in thank.
And yeah, so just finishing off, Jade has been involved with our Climate Emergency Action Plan group for a couple of years now, and has made some great contributions. So looking forward to the new term of the ACT.
Fantastic. Now, I think Councillor Fraser, you had your hand up first. You happy to second? Yep. Do you wish to speak at all, Di? Nathan? Do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. Only briefly, and I guess just to reiterate what Councillor Davies said, Renee Chamberlain and Jack Gill are those names to watch. I mean, I see them how they hold themselves. It's been great watching Renee chair just for the first time, and obviously it's fumbly at the start, but Yak are more than happy to accept, and they've really got behind her. And I think the committee's going to get behind Jade equally, and again, another name to watch. So I'd just like to personally thank Renee and also Jack in their roles played, and also roles that they are still playing. If we had more ratepayers like you, I think local government would be a lot easier. So no, thanks again.
Yeah, they've been quality contributors, I think. Okay. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Davies, you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. All those against, please also vote. Carried unanimously. Youth Sports and Youth Artist Sponsorship Program. So we have three people that are being put forward, all for hockey. Yeah. So Nathan, you happy to move that way? Awesome. Deputy Mayor, you happy to second?
Yeah, hockey is a very important
I'll give
sport.
Nathan an opportunity to speak as the mover. Do you wish to say anything? No, you're all good. Okay, sorry, David, go ahead. Sorry. Oh, David, you're muted still. Sorry.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, I saw Nathan shake his head before. Yeah, hockey is an important sport in the town. We've got a few teams. So yeah, very happy with the sport.
Excellent. If there's no further discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. All those against, please vote. Carried unanimously. Now we'll move over to Youth Development Officer update. How do you wish to proceed? You happy to move that way, Nathan and Cody? I saw you first, Nathan. You happy to move that way? Yep. You happy to second, Cody? Do you wish to speak? Anybody wish to know? Cody? All good. Any discussion? If the Councillor Kosh, you've got your hand up. Did you wish to say something? We're doing the report of the Youth Development Officer. Do you wish to speak at all? No? Okay. If there's no further discussion, we'll put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Thank you. Carried unanimously. So now we move on to the Bike Month 2022. You happy to move that way, Councillor Davies? Do you wish to speak at all?
Just to say that this is one of the things being pushed by Jack Gill, the outgoing deputy chair, and it's really great that we're able to get some projects like this happening and organised through the Act.
Councillor Shanks, are you happy to second?
Yeah, just quickly, I think I'd be as cheeky to say as this Bike Month is part of his campaign into the 2022 elections, but we'll see what happens.
I hope it isn't. Because council will be promoting an individual person, so that might not look too good. Okay. Councillor Samble and then Councillor Kosh.
Thank you, Mayor Karen. Yes, I think it'd be really good to get the youth involved with bikes, and then I may be able to see some bikes ride on these beautiful cycleways we've got. But I would think that it would be very important to get our local cycle teams that Councillor Hughes and Councillor Kosh are involved with, because they've just built up into a real army of cyclists now. So I'm hoping that they will be contacted to be able to assist in helping any plans that may go ahead for the future, because the Gawler Wheelers, without a doubt, I know a few of the people that ride and are involved, and it's a very professional group. So it'd be great to get the youth go along from the word go to be able to understand how the Gawler Wheelers have got their wheels in motion.
Councillor Koch?
Look, can anybody give me an idea of the type of activities that may be running through that bike week month?
Not sure. David Barrett, you're in charge of everything.
Through the chair, I might have to default that one to Chia Main.
Chia, yes. Chia, what's involved with Bike Month?
David doesn't ride bikes.
I don't know if that's true. Through the chair, it hasn't been decided yet what the activities will be, and the subcommittee is to work out all of the activities for Bike Month.
Do you think there'd be a financial implications there for council? Because I do know organising bike festivals are quite resource hungry.
I'm not 100% certain. I imagine it will be through our existing budget for activities.
Yeah, thank you.
So what does that existing budget for activities look like? How much would be spent on Bike Month? Just so people are clear.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the details. I'll take that on notice and I can send that through.
That would be great. Thank you, Chair. Any other discussion? Councillor Shanks, you've still got your hand up. Is that?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just going to answer the question on activities and the motion, but yeah, I was just going to say that it's to promote bike use for that month, and the committee that they're going to form will probably formalise any costs that we as council can look at in a future time.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Davies, you're happy for me to put that motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. So moving across the page, we have recommendations from the CEO Performance Management Panel meeting. Happy to move that way, Deputy Mayor. And this is the noted adopted motions, 12.3 that I'm looking at. Are you happy to second, Councillor Fraser? Yep. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. All those against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Consultancy engagement. Adopt the recommendation. You happy to move that way, Councillor Fraser? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hughes. Any discussion? If not, that motion, all those in favour, please vote now. All those against? Councillor Ballalonga, oh, thank you. That is carried unanimously, thank you. Because Councillor Shanks is out of the room. And KPI update across the page. You happy to move that way, Councillor Samble? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Fraser. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. Those against, please vote. Thank you. That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move on to external body reports. We've got some minutes from the Northern Adelaide Waste Management Authority. Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Moved by Councillor Fraser, seconded by Councillor Kosh. Does the mover or seconder wish to speak at all? No. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So now we move on to questions on notice. There are none. Questions without notice. There be none. I'll keep moving. We've done the motions on notice. Motions without notice. Councillor Goldstone, I believe you have one. you'd like to present that, thank you, Kelvin.
Sorry, I'd like to actually split that into two separate motions if I can, because I don't want one of them being bogged down by the other. So I'd like to move, which point 1 listed there, that the letter of resignation from Dr. Michael Llewellyn-Smith, 21st of March 2022, be noted and included in the minutes. Further, that Dr. Llewellyn-Smith be thanked for his years of service to council as presiding member of the CAP. If I could move that first, Mayor, and can I speak to it now? Or?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, look, it's regrettable, although not unexpected, that the presiding member has chosen to resign due to the reasons outlined in his letter. Michael's leadership of the CAP and his expertise will be sorely missed. I ask that council notes his resignation, the reasons for it, and thanks him for his years of service as presiding member of the CAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? I think Councillor Samuel, you had your hand up. Happy to second? Yep, okay. Any discussion?
Only that I agree with what Councillor Goldstone has said. I've certainly known the presiding member for a long time, and I just had a big feeling that this would happen, and sadly it's he's to be certainly, you know, congratulated on the work that he's done over the years, and now it's basically to the drawing board, which shouldn't be over hard after recent interviews that we've had with various people, but I certainly like to agree with Councillor Goldstone that Michael's done a very good job of chairing the meetings there.
Councillor Shanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I'd like to thank Michael as well. Being in my first term, first year on council, I don't know if you recall, but I put my hand up to be a CAP member. The fact that he was chairing in my first time sitting on the CAP as the presiding member, he was very helpful, and I'd really like to personally thank him for that. It is sad that it has come to this, and hopefully there is a silver lining we can dissect out of it, that Kelvin has probably rightfully split the motion. And yeah, just to reiterate in his letter, I think we can all agree that he did have a lot, or does have a lot of expertise in this space, and the general topic as of late has been heritage, and I think we can agree that he definitely has that heritage expertise as well. So once again, thank you, Michael, if you're watching. And look, if you haven't already elected members, I think the respectful thing would be he sent the emails separately to us to respond and acknowledge his time and service. If you haven't already, would be fantastic and really good to see.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Ballalonger.
Yeah, just like to acknowledge the passing of Jim Downer. Jim Downer's been a Gawler person for a long, long time. Good charity person, and a person who also looked after the Gawler show. I'd just like to wish his family all the best.
I reiterate that. Yeah, I used to babysit his children when I was a teenager. Wonderful man, wonderful Gawler man. Yeah, be sadly missed. Any other discussion on the resignation letter of Dr. Michael Llewellyn-Smith? Any other discussion? There be none. Kelvin, are you happy for me to put that motion? I'll put that motion, please. Everyone, please vote now, either for or against. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, Kelvin, if you'd like to present the second part, separate motion.
The second part is as listed there. This motion seeks for a report to be provided by the CEO looking at all options relative to the composition of the CAP following the presiding member's resignation. The report should include reference to the suggestions mentioned in the presiding member's letter of resignation, in addition to others, keeping in mind the requirements for the appointment of CAP members and terms and roles of the existing members. In the meantime, the CAP will continue to function with Iris Iwanicki automatically filling the vacancy in accordance with her role as deputy member. Given there is no immediate need to rush into a decision, I ask members to support this motion, asking for a report addressing all issues and options so that an informed rather than rushed decision can be made. I ask you to support the motion.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shanks, you're seconding, are you?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, this is the silver lining that I was speaking of in the previous motion. I think we can agree that there has been a lot of public voice about a certain application that I will not mention that resulted in an attempt to do a Heritage Cap 2.0. Now, I won't go over why I was against that, but what I will point out is the outcome here. That motion sought for hopefully heritage experts, which agree to disagree. I think we already have a lot of that on our current cap, but this offers another opportunity of already strengthening strength that is in the current cap by taking two of the members that potentially did apply to Heritage Cap 2.0 and actually absorbing them into the current cap, which in my honest opinion forms a much stronger, robust process, while also listening to our community members, which is our job. I don't disagree with that. But what this particular motion does and the potential outcomes of actually doesn't start with disagreeing in wholeheartedly with town planners, doesn't start by discrediting the current cap by our current advisors, et cetera, et cetera. I think the collaboration potential here is where I believe the sentiment of the original motion may have been. Now, I can't speak on the movers' motivations, but the way that I see this outcome coming, I can now go out in my community head held high and say, look, we are going above and beyond. I believe we already had a lot of experience there, but look at the opportunity we have now to only strengthen that process. So look, I'm in full support of this motion, and I look forward to this to the report to come. And it also covers off the process of if there is any potential of what it looks like with the chair opening up now and what opportunities that does actually give us as council that do select CAP members.
Any other discussion? I think I'll reiterate that the participants and the candidates that we interviewed for the CAP 2 were very interested in heritage, and that's why they applied. So if there's going to be a report back, that needs to be taken into consideration, that their interest is not necessarily always going to be general CAP matters. So there needs to be, if we're going to, if as you said, Councillor Shanks, strengthen the CAP with people from those candidates, there needs to be a flexible approach in that regard. I would suggest that. Okay, any other discussion? If not, Councillor Goldstone, are you happy for me to put the motion?
Happy to put the motion there.
I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please vote now. Carried unanimously, thank you. Okay, that concludes motions without notice. Now, council member attendances. Right. I've it's been a really interesting time. Certainly, we've had the Fringe opening. We've had I had a phone interview with John DeFede. from Italian Radio. We've had some art exhibition openings. We've had a big housing forum with Shelter SA, which went really, really well. We had developers in the room and we had builders in the room that have a social conscience and are really interested in contributing to not only affordable housing, but emergency housing, worker housing and market housing. It was really exciting to have that discussion. There's been lots of meetings at the Garrock. I went to the tennis grand finals at the Gawler Tennis Association, and that was fabulous seeing the life members there. Really good tennis was played, and also went to Triple B Radio 25th anniversary on the 19th of March. And I'd beamed into a state election forum with the previous minister, and not many people actually beamed into that, which was quite interesting. So that's my update. Any other elected members have been involved in community events? Councillor Hughes and Councillor Davies.
I thought, yeah, Councillor Davies was before me, but happy. I've only got a short report. Tomorrow night, the Gawler Health Advisory Council, Thursday night, the Gawler Health Advisory Council meeting, will be discussing with the executive the sudden change to the 24-hour GP Inc. The local GPs have pulled out, and a new system is coming into place. I've already spoken to other representatives to look at what KPIs that we can actually put in as for our community to make sure that the service continues to operate in a satisfactory manner under a change of management, and making sure that it's staffed with experienced doctors, and wait times don't blow out as well. So that meeting on Thursday night is quite important. I've also note that it looks like there's an article in tomorrow's Bunyip about it as well. So it is public notice that this is going on. So yeah, we're trying to get the best outcome for our community in this change.
Councillor Davies.
I wanted to mention that I went along to a couple of the Gawler Civic Centre's fringe events, the crowd chant hosted by Crafty, which I went to last year as well, and it's quite a good event every year. It's a shame that ever since he started doing them, and the premise of it is that everyone can sing along, there's been various COVID rules and regulations of like, if you sing, you have to have your mask on, and all this that sort of are a bit of a pain for an organizer of an event like this, but they've really done well in making it work. And then I went along to the quiz night, the music quiz night, and that was good. I'll have to thank Sam Ergang for helping me when I just dropped in late without a table of my own and went to what I thought was sort of like a half full table, and no one else showed up. So I wandered over to Sam and was like, do I have to be my own table in the quiz night? But he was able to get that sorted out for me. So I think we're running some great events in the Civic Centre.
Councillor Samble and then Councillor Koch.
Thank you, Mayor Karen. Yes, I voted on Saturday, and I hope everybody else did. And without a doubt, I believe that this year is going to be a much easier one. Our local member, Tony Piccolo, ex-mayor and very passionate about Gawler, I would certainly like to see that the acknowledgement comes from this council of he actually gained far many more votes than ever on record. And in the many times that we've met the new Premier, Peter Malalaska, I honestly would like to see that he be invited to a meeting one night, if that's at all possible, because I really believe we're in the right direction. And this year will be much easier to be able to work hand in hand with the government. So I congratulate Tony and Peter and the Labor government, because we need to move forward. Certainly with the epidemic that's going, it doesn't sound like it's going to be much better, but we must work together a lot more carefully, as Councillor Hughes said, to do with the health. There's going to be some trying times ahead. So working together is very important for this final 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Koch.
Yes, Mayor. I just wanted to comment about the Women's Film Festival that I attended last month, end of last month. Fantastic film festival, a lot of local films, plus some of the filmmakers were there, so you could talk to them. Plus there was an exhibition in the James Martin room that matched in with some of the films around mental health. So a very, very interesting and enjoyable night. So well done to everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, I'll ask that the verbal and written reports be tabled and included in the minutes. Somebody'd like to move that way? Happy to move that way, Councillor Goldstone. Thank you. And Deputy Mayor, you happy to second? All those in favour? Just helps us tell people what we're doing. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. So now, do you want to have a quick break, or do you want to keep going? What do you want to do?
Break.
A quick break? Okay, we'll have a quick break of 10 minutes. Come back 10:05, and we'll deal with the final matter. Thank you, everyone.
Can I ask a question to Mr. Delena? Is that light really coming out of your head, Sam? Because it looks fantastic.
He's got a halo. He's got a halo. It's Saint Sam.
Is that what it is?
Sam.
I've got to take the shine off the top.
You need a bit of foundation on it, Sam. That's what.
I polish mine.
I'm going to get a hat now, Brian.
Okay, shall we get started? Is everyone here? I think everyone's here. So welcome back, everyone. We now have one final matter to deal with, and it's a confidential report. Cubbies and Reserve. So I'm actually looking at my pink packet, page 3, and there's a recommendation to go into confidence-based based on commercial reasons and tenders. How do you wish? Do you happy to move, Councillor Little? Happy to move that way? Councillor Goldstone, you happy to second? I would. It is quite good practice to explain to people.
I'm quite happy to do that.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Little.
I'm mainly moving in confidence because the information could be disclosed which could reasonably be expected to confer commercial advantage to another person or other interests, and tenders for the supply of goods, the provision of services and carrying out of work. So under those guidelines, I think it should be made in confidence to give nobody an unfair advantage.
Thank you. So I have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour and all those against. Thank you. Carried unanimously.